Welcome Matt Gallaher, Stephanie Meyers, and Buzz Thomas to the panel this morning. What we have here is a mosaic, and I mentioned this to them before the program started this morning. We have three individuals who are part of our community. They're examples of three people who are living their lives here in East Tennessee, pursuing their own household, their own family self-interest, but they're also folks who are engaged in business and community affairs that have an important impact on our community. So we're pulling this panel together this morning so they can share their perspectives on how we can make this East Tennessee region a more prosperous, a healthier place for all of us to live, a more competitive economy. When we get to the end of our panel, I'd like to make sure we have a little bit of time for questions and answers from the panel, questions from you and answers from the panel. There are cards in the file folder that you were given at registration this morning, so if you have any questions as we go along the way, please use those cards, and then someone will go around and collect those cards, and then we will ask the questions of the panel. So as we get into the panel, I'd like the folks up here in the panel to be thinking about cooperation, thinking about collaboration, thinking about community, and very importantly, thinking about regions. So I'm going to start the question here with Matt Gallaher from Knox Mason. And I'll start by asking Matt, you've selected this community as a place to do business. And I'd like to ask the question, why Knoxville and why now?
Well, I grew up in Knox County, so spent 30 years of my life here. Moved away for about 5 years. And I've seen Knoxville go from the 1982 World's Fair and a vibrant downtown, and a vibrant UT football, UT basketball, that energy that as a child you get so excited about. And ended up attending UT and got a degree in chemical engineering, but kind of saw the potential that I kind of felt that we had as a downtown. Perhaps we're missing out on. And as a college student, I rode the bus and would sit at bus stops on Gay Street and see a lot of empty storefronts, and just saw the potential that those empty buildings had that weren't realized at the time. And so fast forward 15 or so years since college, spent a lot of years as a chef in the meantime, and I see a vibrant downtown with a very exciting Market Square area with a wonderful farmers market. I see a lot of energy in Gay Street, and I was lucky enough, timing was right, to find a small restaurant space on the 100 block of Gay Street, which is, from what I'm told, the most populated block in the city of Knoxville. So I have a small neighborhood restaurant in a very vibrant and very active neighborhood. It's something that I haven't seen in I don't think in my life yet, so I'm so excited for Knoxville and so glad to be a part of it.
Matt, you rely on locally produced food and produce. So tell us a little bit about that supply chain, how you're able to cultivate that, and perhaps if you have suggestions about how we can further grow that particular niche of the local community.
Right. It's a challenge running a restaurant to source locally. I mean, quickly, I guess the reason I like to source locally is my mom was a great gardener, and I grew up with fresh produce almost every day growing up, and I know the difference as a chef and just as a consumer, what that freshness and what that quality means, and the fact that I have access to that in our farmers market, Market Square Farmers Market, it's pretty special as a chef. There's not a whole lot of people that have such a great market 2 blocks from the restaurant, so twice a week I can go down and load up on as much as I can carry and source the restaurant with these great products. And I know that over time, I'm only 10 months old as a restaurateur, but fostering relationships with my local farmers and as a small business and small farms that I'm working with, growing together with them to be successful together and to kind of rely on each other for support. And so far we've been able to do that because the market is so great and so vibrant. And it's compared to other markets I've been to in the region, the farmers market at Market Square is pretty amazing. So I think access is very important. I mean, there are a lot of people that live downtown, so there's a lot of people that's convenient to visit the market. I know there are people to get access to get down to Farmers Market Square on Saturdays. I know something that needs to do with mobile farmers markets. So maybe that's an idea of something we can work through in the future to, the issue of food deserts, are becoming relevant these days. And so I think access, again, is pretty important. So maybe a mobile farmers market could be a solution.
Thank you, Matt. Stephanie, let me turn to you. Green Mountain Coffee. Good coffee, as I noted. Why Knoxville? You could have located anywhere around the country, presumably. You could have chosen a boutique city like Asheville. You could have gone to a big city. Why Knoxville?
Sure. So there's a whole gamut of things that a company like Green Mountain Coffee Roasters is going to look at when they're trying to select a site. A big part of it is location and looking at the geography and the footprint of the company. And, what do they want to get out of a new site? So, at the time, Green Mountain Coffee Roasters is headquartered up in Vermont. And so that's where they were located, is just in that Vermont area. And they really wanted to start expanding their reach, south and west. So something that Knoxville provided was easy access to the south and, pretty easy access to the west. So really helping with our transportation costs and our efficiency on that front. But then also, the quality of life here you spoke to a little bit earlier. That's great for recruitment and also retention of our employees. Green Mountain Coffee Roasters really values making our employees happy and loving where they work. And Knoxville really provided an environment where our employees could also really partner with the community and where the company could partner with the community. So that's another thing that's really important to us. And also, it's a business-friendly community, so there was a lot that incentivized a company like Green Mountain Coffee Roasters to come here, partnering with the state and local officials to make that happen so that then we could come here and invest back in the community. That was also really important to us. And trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's the main points of why we chose Knoxville.
Well, it's interesting because location is critical. You still have to have a very vibrant business plan that is sensitive to market conditions. But it's interesting that you noted the other attributes of this community that made it attractive from the company's perspective, and then also from the perspective of hiring workers and making those workers happy within the community that they live in. Now, you're originally from California, and that's where you were living before.
That's correct.
And so what's the transition been like? And how do you explain to folks in Southern California life in East Tennessee?
When my family chose to, move out here, I had a skewed perception of what they might be living, where they might be living in Knoxville. And I came out for my first visit, and it was completely different than what I had thought. And so that's kind of the perception that I'm dealing with when I talk to my friends in Southern California that ask, why Tennessee? Some of them maybe been to Nashville, but certainly never to Knoxville. So
that makes it worse then, right?
Yeah. So I kind of look at it from their perspective of what's attractive about this area. And the first thing that I can say is it's very green. Coming here and how beautiful it is and how blue the sky is, there's not a layer of smog that you have to, think that that's what I'm breathing in every day, so the air quality. So it's just a nice, clean place to live. I love going out and experiencing nature, and that's so easily accessible here. But not just that, but also the cost of living and being able to really come here and buy a house and start a family and invest in the community as, a singular person, as a singular household. That's also something that a lot of my friends back in California are very envious of, as they're still, renting and having roommates and things like that. So, there's just different aspects, at least for my age group, of what's really attractive about this area.
Well, I travel to California a couple times every year. I have family out there, and I love it out there. But I also love coming back to East Tennessee. And I think about going to California and doing the things tourists do and going to Disneyland and so on. And while we don't have Disneyland, we have our own opportunities. We have our own amenities here. We have our parks. We have recreation opportunities. It's not Southern California, and I think that's a good thing. We have a great place here that continues to get better. Let me ask you a question of the entire panel, and as we do this, I'll start with Buzz, and then we can kind of work back down this way with the panel. But what we have here is, you can see two success stories with both Matt and Stephanie. Buzz is a different success story. He's had a very successful career in private practice as a lawyer, and then he has moved more and more into jobs, if you will, that have greater community impact. And you told me a story. I'm not going to ask you why that happened, but you told me a story about that once, and it was rather touching, Buzz. But we have three success stories here. And the whole community is filled with success stories. Many of you are out there. But we also have problems in this community. We also have challenges. We have stark differences between rich and poor. We have communities in this area that don't have a lot of the amenities that we've been alluding to over the course of our brief comments so far. So any ideas what we can do to help others within this community? So we are already a prosperous people. We are very fortunate in what we have and what we do. So any suggestions, any things that we might think about individually, from a business perspective, from a community perspective, that we can do to help promote the prosperity of our area? Buzz?
Matt, there's going to be an article next week in USA Today about 2 studies on child poverty that came out last month. You may have missed them. One established that child poverty had risen in every state in the United States since the year 2000. So it's a very disturbing study. In fact, a majority of the kids in public schools now in the United States are children in poverty or at risk of poverty. The free and reduced lunch rate in the state of Mississippi, for example, which is not that different from us, is 70% statewide. The second study shows that the single biggest predictor of whether a child will be successful in life, go to college, get post-secondary training, get a good job, is again, whether or not they grew up in poverty. So Matt's asked the question, what's the single most important thing we can do here to make sure we have pathways to progress for everybody in our region? And the answer is pretty simple. It's have great schools. One of the things that will be featured in that USA Today column next week is Tennessee Achieves, which was born right here in Knoxville. It started out as Knox Achieves. We are sending kids to college for $900 a year, less than $900 a year, and keeping them in college at a retention rate way above the state average because everybody has a mentor. So there are best practices going on to help everybody have a path to success, some of them happening right here in our neighborhood. So, and I would say a lot of Tennesseans don't realize that we won a national championship last week, Matt, and in some way more important than football. We had the biggest academic gains in the United States of America on the NAEP assessment. Boy, NAEP is the toughest test. That's an aspirational assessment that every state in the union participates in, and our growth was by far the biggest. In fact, Matt, it was the biggest that has ever happened in the NAEP exam. Next closest state was Indiana with a cumulative gain of 15 points. We gained 22 points. So I would just say in response to your question, the single most important thing we can do to help maintain this trajectory that has attracted these talented young people to our community and will attract more is to have great schools. Thank you. And we're on the path. Knoxville got the best, Knoxville too last week got the best report card they have ever received. And we are a region, but Knoxville's the gorilla in the room. I mean, you can add all the rest of our school system together and it still don't come to the 56,000 kids that are right here in Knoxville.
Yeah, there have been tremendous strides statewide going back to 2008 or 9. I don't recall exactly when, but a growing awareness of the importance of education in Tennessee is really on the move from that regard.
And you helped convince us of that, Matt. I mean, Matt really made the case without great schools, we won't have great jobs, and that's true.
Stephanie, Matt, do you have any suggestions? Buzz is always a tough one to follow.
Well, I think, personally, speaking of education, I think parents as first teachers is so important as well. Not just in education, but in life too. And so, stronger families and parents as first teachers, I think, is also an aspect of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a great mother teacher who would come to all of the conferences, the parent-teacher conferences. She would also come to class, and parents were encouraged to come to class. Very few did, but she would sit in the back of the room and scare me to death, and I'd be embarrassed and so on. But Mother was a strong advocate for education, and she didn't have that education. She dropped out of high school because she had to. But it was one of the things that she told me is that it is a foundation for your future. Very much it is. Stephanie?
So I think there's kind of maybe two parts that I'm looking at. One is even kind of addressing food security and kind of relates back to the poverty issue of, when kids are hungry, it's difficult to learn. So really trying to address the hunger and food security issues that are particularly relevant to some of the, more rural areas. But then also besides that, having a lot of role models in business becoming more involved in the schools. So that kids can see, what do they aspire to be when they grow older. Maybe they don't have access to role models like that in their families. And so realistically, you have to look at, bringing those in front of them so that they can be motivated to achieve and go on to post-secondary education and things like that.
Just picking up on what Stephanie said, because Green Mountain Coffee is such a great role model here for all of us. We cannot leave the educational task to our public schools alone, folks. Southerners didn't fund public education at a high level because we didn't have to. We were an agrarian part of the country, and you didn't have to have great schools to live a happy life here. Lots of my cousins were farmers. And even when I was a boy growing up in high school, you could graduate from high school and go out here to Alcoa. They had 10,000 employees back then paying union wages, and you could have a good life. Those days are gone. And so we have to have partnerships with our school systems to get from good to great. And Green Mountain Coffee is a fantastic example of that. They are making grants all over our community on educational projects. They helped us fund our early literacy work. So those of you who are sitting in the audience saying, well, I'm not on the school board, or I'm not a teacher, or I'm not in the school system, you have a role to play in helping us create this environment